Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. If you haven't seen me already, my name is Eva, and we are going to be talking about how to overcome anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything life throws at you, you're going to be ready to overcome it using this 3-step method. Okay, I changed the angle a little bit. I think I like this a little bit better. So pretty much there's a 3-step method to get over anything. It's called the stop, drop, and roll method. So I'm going to break down each step for you, and it's super simple. It literally is life-changing, and if it does for you what it did for me, it will switch your life around, actually. I know you hear a lot of people talking on the internet about how, oh, this is going to change your life. This is going to help you. No, this is actually going to change your life if you apply what I say. The only way that I can help you is if you help yourself. The method stop, drop, and roll works for anything, but this video is specifically targeting trauma. So trauma is a distressing event that causes a change in a person that is undesirable, meaning it does not improve your life any at all. It just makes your life worse. So trauma could be someone when you were young who left you, or maybe someone yelled at you or abused you when you were young, and that has an impact on who you are today. Trauma can be weeks ago, and you still act out in a way as if it was happening now, when it's not happening now. It happened months ago, years ago, when you were little. I'm going to make a lot more videos about going in depth on this, but today we're just doing an overview of what trauma is and how you can change it. All mental illnesses come from these 3 things: beliefs, so what you believe; bias, which is how everyone sees the world. Everyone has a different bias. I have a different bias than someone on the street. I have a different bias than my mom, than my dad. Everyone has a different bias. And behavior, which is how you act on your beliefs and your bias. So those 3 things is what causes all mental illness, okay? And if we can change one, or maybe all 3, whatever has to be addressed for each individual, that is where you start to see change. So I'm going to give you a little hack to change your beliefs, bias, and behavior. And it is called the stop, drop, and roll method, like I said. We'll go over a lot of different things in future videos, but I'm going to try to make this one short, and we're just going to talk about the method. But I kind of wanted to give you a little background so you can understand. So stop. Stop means when you are in the moment and you're experiencing a strong emotion, this is when I want you to use this method, okay? I'm a very emotional person, and so my whole life has been just emotions all over the place. I want you to stop. And what I like to do is just slow down in this part of the method. In the first step, I just want you to slow everything down. There's no rush. And in this portion of the stop, drop, and roll method, you are going to breathe, and you are going to think through these things. So S, be still. Just like I said, slow down. You need to separate your feeling from the actions that you perform, okay? They're not the same thing. And when you feel a strong emotion, a lot of people take an action and say, oh, it's because of this emotion. No, they are separate. They are 2 separate things. Just because you have an emotion does not mean you need to act on it at all. Ask yourself questions to try and figure out what this feeling is from. Because sometimes it can be hard to understand where something's coming from, okay? It can be hard because you know you're feeling this strong emotion, but you don't know why. So a lot of people tend to shut it out and to just let it be alone. I want you to understand that doing that isn't going to help. It is going to build and build and build until you are numb all the time. You're sad all the time. You can't feel anything, okay? You don't want that. We're going to break it down, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So stop. The S is for just to be still. T is be thoughtful. So think about what it could be. The O is the most important part, is to be observant and not judgmental. You don't need to judge yourself, okay? There's too much judgment in the world. You don't need to judge yourself. You need to observe. Pretend like you're coming from outside of your mind and you're somebody else as a third person watching what you're doing, watching what just happened and trying to correlate it to what you're feeling, okay? Observing all that, okay? The P, the last one, is to be patient, okay? You're not going to have it all figured out the first time you do this, okay? Sometimes we just don't know why we're upset. That is pretty much the stop process. What I want you to do overall is to do what I told you, the STOP. But the main gist of what stop is to feel the feeling and just to understand it. So give empathy, understand, and have patience with yourself. Drop. This is where we're going to drop into the feeling and figure out what exactly is causing it. In the stop method, you may have gotten a little kind of idea of what's causing it, but for drop, you're going to dig deep and we're going to figure out what exactly the mental distortion is. Every strong emotion has an equally strong distortion to your thought pattern. A lot of times, let's just give an example of I am upset because I lost my job. Okay, that's a big thing that happens to a lot of people. We lose jobs, things happen. But I'm upset because I lost my job. And in the stop method, I stopped and I had patience with myself. And I said, yeah, I gave myself compassion. I said, it's understandable to be upset when you lose your job. And I figured out, okay, I'm upset because I lost my job. Number 2 is drop method. We're going to dig deeper and deeper into that. And we're going to figure out why it bothers you so much that you lost your job. So let's say I think, okay, I lost my job. In the drop method, I'm going to drop down and figure out why. I usually just ask myself why, like 20 times. I'm like, okay, why are you upset that you lost your job? I'm upset that I lost my job because this means that I'm not a good worker. Okay, then you ask yourself why again. Why do you feel like being a good worker has to do with you? Like, does that change your value that you have on yourself? And you say, like, yeah, like I feel like everywhere I go, people don't want me. Or every time I try to do something, people just push me away. And it kind of, you just have to boil it down in the drop method. Once you get down to the core belief, I want you to write the core belief out. And I want you to say, I believe that I da 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 da, and put whatever you found your core belief to be. Okay, for the job example, let's say that the core belief is that I have no value. No one sees my value. Okay, so once you have your core belief written out, I want you to screenshot this. And I want you to look at all the cognitive distortions. And I want you to figure out which one identifies with your situation, okay? The example I gave, I have no value. Can you figure out what cognitive distortion that could be? So the cognitive distortion that it could be, there's a lot that it could be. So it could be personalization, which is where people blame themselves for something that doesn't really have to do with them. Minimization, seeing your strengths and achievements as small and unimportant. There's a lot of things that it could be. So let's just go with personalization. Let's say they take all the blame and they put it on themselves. So under the statement that you wrote, your core belief, you're going to write the cognitive distortion. Once you have those two things written down, we're going to go on to the role method. And this is the most important method, I believe. So you're going to take everything that you just discovered about your issue and everything you just discovered about your trauma, and you're going to write it down as if you're talking to someone who is like maybe a mother figure, maybe someone you look up to, maybe a father figure, someone who is more matured. What I like to do is I like to write it down as if I'm talking to somebody who's older than me, okay? This is where we're going to be role playing. We're going to begin the role playing scenario. Role stands for role playing. So, like I said, write your whole situation down. You're going to say, I am upset because I lost my job and I figured out that the cognitive distortion is, and then say the cognitive distortion. Say, I just feel horrible. I feel like I'm not worth anything. I feel da 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 da. Go into detail. Go, 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 go. Write it all down as if you're talking to someone who cares, someone who has the knowledge that you don't have. After that, you're going to look at all of it, whether it's on paper, whatever you chose to write it out on, and you're going to read it back out loud. It might sound weird, it might be crazy. And you're going to read it as though you're talking to that person out loud, okay? After you read it out, you're going to switch perspectives. You're going to switch from being the person who's looking for help to the person who's older and helping them. So you're going to switch your role and you're going to respond to whatever you just said. You're going to respond and you're going to say, oh my goodness, daughter, out loud. It's going to sound crazy. Okay. It's going to sound crazy. Let's just get over that part, because self-help, self-improvement, all of this is worth it. You're going to sound crazy. Okay. So you're going to say, daughter or son, oh my goodness, I'm sorry you're going through this. And you're going to give them advice as if you are the person who's in the higher position. And you know what this is going to do? This is going to bring the parent part of your brain out. The parent part of your brain is going to know what to do, because there is someone inside of us who can help with every situation we have. We don't go to ourselves enough, okay? Every single person has the answer within. They just don't want to do it. So you're going to say, whatever you say is enough. That's the advice that you need. What would you say to your son or your daughter that you love dearly? We're going to talk about childhood wounds, and we're going to talk about inner child. Everyone has an inner child, and we're going to talk about those in the next videos. So I'm not going to get too far deep into that, but if you would like, you can talk to your inner child. If you don't understand what an inner child is, I'm going to be making videos in the next couple weeks discussing that. But for now, talk to your son or your daughter, and you're going to figure out what their issue is, and you're going to help them. And it always helps, okay? That is the way to get over anything, the stop, drop, and roll method. So if your answer, okay, so that was the stop, drop, and roll method, okay? So you can stop the video now if that helped you. But if your cognitive distortion had anything to do with self-worth, we have a whole different roll method. That was the standard roll method for things like, oh, I'm just like really sad and my cat died and I'm just like upset about that, or da 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 da, all these different things, okay? But there's a whole different segment for if it has to do with, I feel like I'm not enough. Like, I feel like I have a lesser self-worth than other humans. We're going to go through this separate session for the roll method. So if it's a self-worth issue, we're going to add this middle segment, okay? And we're going to ask yourself, or if you're helping someone else, we're going to ask the other person this set of questions, okay? So the first one you're going to ask yourself is, what would you rank your self-worth on a scale of 1 to 4? 1 being I have way less self-worth than every human in the world. 4 being I have the highest self-worth a human can have. And you're going to have your client, if you're helping someone, or you're going to have yourself rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 4. And this is going to show a lot. So let's say it's a self-worth issue and you're like, I don't feel like I have any worth. And you're like, I would say a 1.5. Then you're going to ask your client, or you're going to ask yourself, what makes you feel that you are worth less than other humans? And that answer is going to tell you a lot. It's always a cognitive distortion with this. With self-worth, it's always, always, always a cognitive distortion. So you're going to want to take note of that, of what cognitive distortion it is, okay? Just like in the drop method. So just make sure you have the cognitive distortion in the back of your head, because it's always one, okay? With self-worth, everyone in the world is worth the same. But these people can't see it. Maybe you can't see it, okay? So then I want you to say this story, and I'll write this story out for you at the end, of course, and I'll put it in the link in the description so you can have it. All right. So tell the story. You are sitting alone at home, and you get a knock at the door. You get up and you go answer it. And it's a government official, and he's like, hey, I'm here to collect some people from your area. We're going to do a government experiment. You have to come with me. And you have no choice. You must come with me, okay? And if you need something, you can let me know. If you need some water, like some food, but you have to come drop everything you're doing and come with me. They load you up on a helicopter, and you're on this flight for hours, okay? You end up falling asleep. You don't know where you are. You wake up, and you are in an area of more modest means, okay? You're not in America anymore, or you're not in the country that you're from. You're in a completely different country. They land the helicopter and they take you into this nursery, okay? And you have just rooms and rooms of just adorable babies. They are just born, and it's like a hospital, okay? It is just beautiful to see. So many little babies, all smiling. Some of them aren't smiling, some of them are grumpy, some of them are sleeping, some are crying. They're all babies. And so they're like, all right, so we are doing a population control, okay? And you're like, what? And they're like, there's just too many people in the world. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, it just shocks you because you're like, what? And so they're like, we want you to decide which of these babies have, I guess, which of these babies are worth less. Okay? Get up and go. Some of them are crying. Some of them are disabled. Some of them are sleeping. Like I said, there's a variety. And you come back and you're like, what do you mean worth less? And they're like, that's your job. You have to tell us which ones are worth less. Then ask the client or ask yourself, how would you go about figuring out which of these babies are worth less? And the answer is going to be they're all worth the same. Like they're all worth the same. And so then you would say, how would you figure out how to rate them? Because they asked you rate them 1 through 4 on being worth, like they're worth. And you're like, they're all a 4. There's no way.
My microphone broke, so it's okay. Anyways, you're going to stop the story and you're going to go back and you're going to ask your client, how can you figure out the worth of these babies? And they're going to say, like, they're all 4 out of 4. And you can do this and continue on and say, what about kindergartners? What about a room full of adults? And every single time you tell the story, in every scenario you do, they're going to say the same thing, 4 out of 4. So with that all being said, you're going to ask your client or yourself, how can every single person have a 4 out of 4, but I don't? Is it logical? Does it make sense? Is it beneficial? And is it true? We want to base our thoughts off of what is beneficial and what is true, okay? So is the original thought pattern that we had of, I don't think I have a high self-worth because I lost my job, or I have a high self-worth because statistically speaking, everyone does, and I choose to love myself. Which one is more beneficial and true? This isn't true or beneficial. This is true and beneficial. So we're going to choose this thought pattern. Once you help the patient or you help yourself identify which thought pattern they are going to choose, you have to help them or help yourself implement it into your daily life. And you have to switch and change the thought patterns from the bad ones to the good ones. And once you continuously do that, from the stop, drop, and roll method, you identify what thought pattern is negative and you switch it with a positive one. Everything from there on, if you put the work in and if you switch from the negative thought pattern to the positive one, your whole bias and therefore your whole world will completely change. Completely change. And you can quote me on that. If you do the work, what I said, stop, drop, and roll, and you implement the new thought pattern into your daily life, and you act on that new thought pattern, you will see change. And it's just a fact. You can look at science, you can look at biology, you can look at the Bible. If you're religious, you can look at anything, and you will see that you must speak positive into the world or else you're gonna get negative, okay? So I hope you've learned a lot from this video. I know I made it a little bit long, and I'm sorry my mic cut out. I had like 10 minutes of extra footage that completely disappeared, but it's okay. I just hope that you choose the right thought patterns and you help yourself, because that at the end is all I want. And I'm going to be making videos in the future. I hope you can subscribe and like this video to help me out.